going to test you on chemical history, but it's helpful to just hear about where some of these ideas came from. So there was a guy named Leucippus back in the 5th century BC, and he had a student named Democritus. And they together were the first to propose that that matter was composed of small, indestructible particles, and they gave those particles the name atomos, or indestructible. Democritus wrote, "Nothing exists except atoms and empty space. Everything else is opinion." So they proposed that there were a lot of different kinds of atoms, that they differed in shape and size, and that they moved randomly through space. These guys were pretty right on for 500 years BC, right? Well, Plato and Aristotle, who were, still are much more famous, right? They didn't believe this. They were philosophers, and they believed that matter had no smallest part, that you could just keep dividing it forever. And they said that different substances are composed of various proportions of 4 elements: fire, air, earth, and water. Now, of course, that sounds ridiculous to us today, but there was no objective or experimental way to test these ideas. The scientific method wasn't around yet, and even if it had been, science really didn't exist yet, right? People didn't know what things were made of. So Aristotle's view was the one that took hold because he was very influential, so people believed him. And science was set back 2,000 years by eliminating these ideas that Leucippus and Democritus had. So eventually the scientific approach became the established way to learn about the physical world. These other guys were philosophers, meaning they thought about stuff, and there's value in philosophy, but it's hard to learn concrete things using just philosophy. So John Dalton, he lived in the 17 and 1800s. He offered convincing evidence that those early atomic ideas were true, but the debate continued until 1905, when Einstein came up with that theory explaining Brownian motion.